Welcome everyone. This is our beginning of series which is called Corporate Compass, and it's specifically dedicated to transitioning defense personnel. And as they look out for their second inning, what are some of the ways they can have a very structured approach? Is something that we are trying to solve through this series. We have partnered with Rupali Suri here. She's a seasoned HR professional with more than 18 years of experience across talent development and learning solutions. She has successfully designed and implemented various global programs across geographies and industries. So we are going to be obviously leveraging her experience and how she has also helped and coached many professionals in her journey, clocking, I believe, more than 2,300 of training mentoring sessions, Rupali. So we look forward to an engaging conversation today. As I said, it is a series of sessions that we intend to do, which will be providing step by step information, toolkits for an effective transition as you prepare your launch in the corporate world, if I may say. If you find the session useful, do not forget to register for the next one because we will be following a flow. And in case you miss out anything, everything would be available on our socials and our channels. So do follow for more. Over to you, Rupali, and we look forward to an engaging session today. Thank you for joining in.
Perfect. Thank you so much, and thanks everyone for making time on a holiday, on a weekend, to come and listen to me. I hope to use your time really well. I want to very quickly talk about, what we intend to do through this series. So this is a series of 6 sessions. It'll walk you through everything that you need to know about a corporate transition, from organizational culture to where you fit in, how do you fit in, what does a great interview look like, what should be a good starting point. All of these questions along this series will get answered. um, of course, we are happy to, address any questions over and above that you have. So at the time that you register for this session, you can post your questions to us. I will be addressing a couple of them that are relevant to today's session, but rest assured, those that seem not answered today will continue to either feature on our socials, or you can also reach out to us on LinkedIn, and we're more than happy to help you understand, or give you the support that you need. Um, Very quickly, in the first session, and across these sessions, what our intent is to just give you um, something that will help you, not just as you listen to me for this 1 hour, but when you begin to self reflect, think about moving out and ahead into this new world, and a world that's probably not typically that new to you. It's just that the terrain is different. That's how I'd like to see it. I've also been very lucky to have worked with, a couple of veterans in the past. So I do know that they bring immense amount of value to the workplace. They bring a very diverse perspective. The one thing that I think I love about the way they work is the discipline and the rigor that they bring to the corporate setup. That said, these sessions are fairly very close to my heart because it's a very new audience, and an audience that I'd love to engage with. Feel free to, put out your thoughts, views as I talk through a few pages on chat as well. Yeah. What I'm going to do is I'm going to very quickly bring up my screen. Just give me 1 second, and we shall then get started. A minute. Okay. Yeah, we're in the right mode. Here you go, full screen. Yeah, yeah. Okay. So our first session today is Reckon the Corporate Battlefield. We are talking about, just that very, very important element that helps you fit in. Any guesses on what that might be? Anybody? Would anybody want to just unmute and share, or I should be able to access chat as I drive. Yes, I can. So, anybody think, can anybody, second guess what is that most important element that helps you make this transition? What is that key human element? So, it's not a corporate jargon, or it's not got to do specifically with anything that the veterans are used to, but it's a very, very human element. Anybody? Any guesses? Anybody attempting it? Okay. So it's basically culture. It's about how people interact, how people engage with one another is most important. Now, when we talk about um, culture, okay, it sounds like a really broad word. Yeah, it's one that invites different phrases for different people. Culture could only mean what you wear. Culture could also mean only what you talk, or it could mean both to somebody. And I want to just, get a sense and pick your brain on what you think culture is. What, according to you, or what are that one or two words that, according to you, describe culture? I'm very happy to get your point of view on chat. It'll be really helpful to make this a lot more interactive and engaging versus a download of thought from my end. So, if anybody would like to either unmute and speak, of course, showcasing your confidence, or chat and share your opinion, either ways, it's good. Anybody? Now I'm assuming that you're also right here because I don't see any of you having turned on your cameras. It'd be great if you do. But for any reasons that you're unable to do that, that's also fine. Anybody? Okay. So culture can have various dimensions. Culture can mean various things for various people. Broadly, culture is defined at various layers. A topmost layer is one which is mostly associated with what you see as culture. So, when you say culture from an Indian standpoint, it's about how we dress. We cover our head. For Punjabis, it may be a turban. For others, it may be something else. So, it's about the physical and the most viewable element of the cultural association. Now, in an organization, this has various colors and feels, if I may say. Um, and that's one of the reasons why organizations believe in branded merchandise, because that's also a place of resonance. It could even be a small org specific sticker. That's the top layer of our culture. The other is the softer stuff that we usually sense and feel, but we don't usually explicitly talk about it or see that happen in a workplace. They're deeper, more rooted, and they're more rooted with a particular region. For example, if you're in a meeting with say the Germans in any part of Europe, you will realize that punctuality for time is very, very, very critical to them. If you say the meeting begins at 10, they probably will be at the Zoom bridge, 2 minutes before 10, just to make sure that they actually log in just on time. At such a time, if the host actually initiates the meeting late, it's taken as um, a bad thing. It's probably looked down on. It's probably showcasing disrespect. The same thing and exactly same behavior in any South American country is not looked down on. It's very different. It's the approach is a lot more casual. It's okay to walk in 5, 7 minutes late. It's all right to have a reason for not being there on time, but it doesn't work in another region. Those are the not so visible elements of culture. And of course, in this case, I think a lot of veterans would resonate with the culture that talks about what you like in terms of time and discipline. I think nobody knows it better than the group that I'm speaking with. The rest of us may not be as in tune to that. You've probably seen that far more closely and experienced that far more closely, right? So that's the second layer of culture. The third and the deepest layer of culture is one that's completely invisible. It's also a layer that we don't usually resonate with in our conscious self. It's a very subconscious layer of our being. where we just understand that this is done in this way because culturally it's not acceptable to do it any other way. For example, again in the workplace, if you look at inter cultural teams, for a region like Japan, it's really, really critical for someone to um, actually deal with not necessarily sharing an opinion just to ensure that there is a group consensus on what's happening. So it's not that people don't work to collaborate, they do, but they don't believe in usually pushing a point of view in a conversation unless it has any major impact. Flip the same thing and move towards the US, and you'd see that sharing a POV or an individual, sorry, point of view is extremely important to people. And it's not necessarily something that's looked down on or looked at differently. It's not taken in as maybe insulting or not looking really great. Now, why is this so important? And why at Diverse Prism are we talking about this? Why should this be so important to you as you think about this journey ahead? Remember that at the end of the day, it's all about people. And if you find resonance with people, and if you find a way to connect with people in the new setup that you are planning to get into, you will find yourself a lot more comfortable. You'd probably find all the necessary allies that you need if you understand these elements or these different layers, and you try and evaluate what you're seeing and how you can contribute to that. So you find that value add way of tying all of this together. That is the reason why, and in for within organizations, when we work on DEI for hiring and we look at how this impacts organizations, one of the elements that most of us in HR always focus on is hiring for culture readiness. So if you resonate with an organization's culture, then you seem to be a lot more fit to be hired. How does this translate, and what does this mean for you in the workplace? Tip number one: when you think of an organization that you probably want to join, or you think that you might have a better option to take on a corporate career there, it's important to understand what is the culture dimension looking like. What are those traits that they value? And it's really important for you to talk about in that conversation, those values and how those values and what those values actually mean to you, because value is a word. I could say being a continuous learner is a value. It means very different things for you, it means very different things for me. For me, it means taking a pause every 2 to 3 years and upskilling on something. you know I have a huge fetish for certificates, by the way, so I probably just go out and look at a certification course and do something. Continuous learning for somebody else may mean understanding a nuance at work deeper and deeper and deeper. It may not mean certification, it may mean something else. And for somebody it may also mean looking at a different role, a different function, a different team. You just want to move into another space, you want to just take yourself into a different space at work. So it could mean very different things for different people. And therefore, it's important for you as you think of this career transition, looking at organizational culture, try and see cultures and those culture statements that resonate best with your personality, with what you want to do in this second innings that you're going to walk into, and how any of those roles that you might want to apply to, how those how do those culture elements that the organization is talking about, or those traits that you have, how do they all stitch in and tie in together? That's one of the reasons why this is one of our first sessions and one of the most important sessions, because this is that session that helps you build those allies. This is that session that helps you identify where to start. This is that proposition that you should know. What is the culture value proposition that you want to grow with, and find that. Yeah, that did come in. I'm going to pick the first one. And it's an interesting one which talks about breaking of the age barrier for veterans in corporate. It says consider their technical expertise and competency and dedication. Yes, that should be valued. I completely agree with you. And it also says they always assert the organization, but they must be prioritized in this opportunity. Now, it's a great point that you're making. And are they prioritized in this opportunity? It's very important when you think of this job search, or you look at this role transition, or you look at this second stint. Try and understand organizations and where they are in this journey. The truth is that sooner or later, everybody will catch up on this uh, talent pool. You are this, and first believe that you are this really important, good talent pool that exists, and that corporate is meant to tap into it. It's more like um, it's more like an Aladdin mantra, but everybody's not reached there yet. Okay. All organizations aren't there yet. That's the reality. And therefore, you should also check out organizations, go through their web pages, go through their social media, go through what they have to say on LinkedIn, and see if they're really savvy on veteran hiring. If they are doing stuff in that space, then there are a lot more open, and they've probably already gone through that curve and deciphered where they want to fit groups of people that come with these credible skills, yet those that have not had typical hiring or growth journeys. So my growth journey is in the corporate space, yours isn't. But does that mean anything when we take a new role? No, it's still about our skills and competencies. So it's important for you to think about these organizations, see their social media pages, check them out, and try and understand whether they are doing stuff in the veteran spaces, because that's where they have dedicated channels and dedicated roles for veterans. They've already done that internal debate, they understand that. That's one. The other question that's come to me is how to choose between various fields of work. It's a great question. So, while there is, while it's fair to say that yes, veterans can fit in anywhere where there is any kind of discipline and management that is required, that's true. But what are some interesting spaces where your skills will be most valued? It'll be your operations, any kind of operational flow, whether it's manufacturing or non-manufacturing, it is going to be of value over there. Another great fit will be anything in the people management space, because it's not very heavy on tech and it's not very technical a skill. It's not something that it will take you too much time to upskill if you really need to. Yes, there is a lot of terminology that might be involved in those roles, but that's not challenging. If you're looking at a transition in the next year, it's a great time to think of a diploma course or picking up something that's relevant to you. Another important space is anything that matches with your core skills. So if it's a technical skill that you're great at, or it's a management skill, you'd have to see where exactly that skill fits best in another organization or in another industry. A lot of those that come from the Air Force, I understand, also have engineering backgrounds and science backgrounds and can look at technical roles as well over just operations management and people centered roles. So it might be a helpful activity to actually list down your core skills, both soft, technical, and detail them out there. And then try and do a mapping as you begin to think of these job roles and understand where exactly you're going to fit in best. Um, Also, it's not about just fitting in. It's not about, picking yourself from one space and plugging yourself into another, because you're never going to find that exact shape. It's not like a jigsaw puzzle where you'll just fit in. It's more like you've got to make space and push yourself into the system. It's about more like plugging yourself into a system. Now, for that, it's important for you to understand, is the gap that you come with, or the skill set that you come with, if the gap is too much, then it's going to be a lot more challenging for you to find yourself to fit in. So fine tune your search based on your skill to understand what that role is going to demand and what's the skill set that you're bringing, and see how much of that gap you can cover. And if you can cover that in your transition phase, it'll be really, really marvelous, because you'll find yourself easing smoother. As you get into any of these roles, remember finding a buddy or an ally at work is critical. And that's where the culture element becomes very, very, very important. Somebody who resonates. And for you, therefore, it's important to understand your core value proposition. What is it that you bring to the table? What is that space that you'd really want to work in? I'm going to move on to another question, which came to us, which is how do I transition into HR roles? Now, typically, HR roles begin at operational levels. They also have a lot of data roles in the new HR formats that we work in, and then there are high operations role where you're managing a lot more people, less data. Then there are strategic roles where you're basically doing more of the strategy, more of the future forward thinking, and less of operations. I think a good place to start would be middle, to be able to get something that is more operational, gives you the nuances. It's an opportunity to learn faster without a diploma. It's actually a diploma at work. That's how I'd look at it. um and just to let you in, I've not always been the most seasoned HR person, but I've learned an immense amount of stuff at work each day. So it's a good place to start somewhere at the middle. This is a place where you may want to, you know, take it with a pinch of salt to see that, your reporting system may look slightly smaller, but in the long run, I think the value of having rolled up your sleeves and actually run through all of that operational stuff would be great. A transition into HR may not be as difficult. Today, there are dime a dozen um, you know, executive MBAs, diploma HRs, 6-month crash courses, and stuff like that. But HR, again, today is a really broad term. It's a really broad field. You may not find yourself most suited to handle it that way. And therefore, it's important for you to also try and read, do some research, look at job descriptions to see where in that broad bucket would you like to go. You could fit in into, if you're great with numbers, then analytics is a great space today. If you're great with change management, then HR transformation may excite you a lot more. Project specific work comes through at transformation levels. You could also think about people operations, which is something that you'd be a lot more savvy with to begin. But those are two, three big options that you can think about. But again, don't go with a broad bucket. My recommendation is that you do a lot more deep dive into various HR roles that exist. A great way to start that is to look at various organizations that talk about org structures. So there are certifications. There is a lot of material floating in on websites like SHRM, AIHR. Uh, they have immense amount of material to help you understand how HR functions are structured, and do some read up and research and try and see resonance with what sub element of HR might interest you the most. Yeah, and then it's worth diving into that depth, maybe with a diploma or something, as you think of that transition. I'll take another question that we have here, and probably that is the last one that I have on the list for today, which is how do I choose an appropriate role? The job description of a role is elaborate. How do I decipher if it's the right one for me? What is the minimum time after an interview to wait to follow up? And if the company is not responding, so ghosting is a normal thing. Today, candidate experience in organizations is going through huge amounts of change, and the dynamics are such that it actually sometimes makes a candidate feel like they're not interested in me. But I think it's just the sheer volume that organizations are dealing with, and the whole HR transformation, the advent of AI, the plethora of tools that organizations have, and the lesser depth. We have tools, but we don't use them as much. It's just like a legacy system sitting in the organization. These are things that organizations are dealing with at this point in time. So the first thing I'd like to definitely say, because I've also done a fair bit of work in candidate experience, is that we do feel like the organization's chosen to ghost us, or we're not a relevant candidate, and therefore they don't respond or stuff like that. But sometimes I think the volumes that they're dealing with are so large that they aren't being able to keep pace with that, and the process is still going through that transition where we're not set in a automated manner to deal with all the volume that comes our way. That's one of those challenges. So typically I think 2 weeks to 1 month is a good amount of wait time at application level. If it's at interview level, again, a 2 week to 3 week time is good enough. There are times where large organizations come back to you 3 to 4 months later also, but that's because of, various things that happen. Sometimes roles get suddenly halted and stuff like that. But if you're asking me for a typical TAT, it should be within 2 to 4 weeks. Um, of course, once you've gone through an interview, if you don't hear fairly quickly, the chances are that they have had a larger bunch of people and they have probably shortlisted somebody else. It's also a great question to ask, to the interviewer, what is the best wait time for me to know from you? And in all fairness, a lot of them are transparent enough to let you know that this could take about a month and a half also. So you get a sense of what is the anticipated time. But it's not a bad question to ask. It's a great question to ask in the interest of transparency, to say that I'd like to understand how much time will I hear from you again. Now, coming to the first part of this question, which is understanding a job role. It's important to break that down, and you can also use AI tools for that. So, ChatGPT, Gemini, any of those, pick the job description, dump it in there, and ask ChatGPT to break that down into various skills and competencies for you. Actionable skills and competencies is what you can ask it to do. And when it gives you those actionable words, you will actually see a lot more words that resonate with you or don't resonate with you. And that's the time when you could choose to say that, oh, on the surface level, the job description looked very interesting. I thought I could carry this out very well, but it doesn't seem like that. Another thing to do a better deep dive is to put that out on an AI tool and ask for skills and competencies, and also ask for sample key performance indicators, the KPIs, like we call them, because it will then tell you that at the end of 1 year, what are you going to probably get measured on, or what does good performance in that particular role look like. And it will give you a lot of bullets that will help you understand better what that role looks like at work or in action. um, and if you still don't get clarity on it, then my personal thinking is that maybe it's not really fit for you. So I would say that try and sift beyond the job description of a role. Try and understand it at that depth level. Try and break it down into various skills and competencies. Try and understand what outcomes in that role are going to look like, or KPIs in that role are going to look like. That will be of value to you as you dive in. I know of a few people who've probably jumped into some of these roles and also realized that actually they were a misfit for those roles. So, this activity and this personal self study and research will help you have a more defined path and help you understand the depth of what you're meant to do better before you dive into doing taking up these jobs. That's broadly for the questions that I had for this session. I think if there are more questions, I'm happy to address those. Um, I do see that we have one or two more participants that came in as I was speaking, but I would love to leave the floor open for any questions that anybody may have. If you're camera shy, then you can also type your questions in here. I'm happy to address those. So Hofstad is a very famous, people psychologist, and he's coined a term called the software of the mind. And he has called culture the software of the mind. Coming back to the conversation that I started in the interest of those that have joined in late, the first session's more about culture. The reasons why this we picked this as our first session is at the end of the day, it's all about people. People from different spectrums of work that come together and work together. If the softwares align, then there's an easy give and take of data that happens, right? We've always seen when we're leaving a legacy system and moving to a new one, we usually try and see whether the transition of information is smooth and effective, and that makes a huge difference to our choice of a particular tool. Um, you know, and to that effect, I'm saying this that if you understand and you fall in place with the nuances of culture, you will find more allies at work. You will find your transition a lot more easier, and you'd also find yourself resonate better with an organization. So, two things that you should take away, and I talked about them earlier. One is that you must think about culture from a people standpoint and understand the organization's main culture value propositions, see if they make sense to what you call value. And if they do, that's an organization to think about applying to, as well as finding, those dimensions of culture that are most important to you or those that are your strengths. Do they really get highlighted in the role that you are planning to apply for? That's another important element to think about. Now, why it's called the software of the mind is it's just about how we are in tune with one another based on how a software runs. It's always smooth and easy to run uh, because it's connection at the personal level, it's at the machine level, then it's a better connection at the server level, which is basically the org level. And it's a way better frequency connection if it's the internet or the IP and across the globe. Then it's basically about how you connect with a team of teams culture. So think of your own um, traits as a part of a software, and think of that in the same sense with others, and try and see where do you find those similarities, where do you find resonance, where do you find people thinking, feeling, and liking exactly like you. And a great place to start is to go through organization websites, LinkedIn pages, and other social media handles to understand what is the culture value proposition that an organization is promoting and how much does that fit well with you. That's a starting point. Yeah. I'm going to just quickly run through. So, this is something that I already talked about. I'm going to begin at the top again to sum up. So, artifacts and products is all the physical element of culture. What we see at a surface level, it's how we dress, how we interact, everything that's on the surface, how the office looks, where we sit, how do we work, what kind of machines do we use, what kind of network do we have, what kind of technology systems are we using to talk to each other. All of that is part of artifacts and products. Norms and values are those that resonate deeper at another level. We talked about punctuality. We talked about being more casual at work in the Southern American region, whereas being more formal at work in say a European country like Germany. That's another important. And the basic assumption, something that's never visible, it's not talked about. It's absolutely invisible, but it exists. It's almost like a subconscious behavior. And that is the part of us that just does something on a built-in assumption. Like we talked about in Japan, you just will not push a POV for the sake of pushing it. Unless it impacts something, you don't really feel the need to continuously voice individual opinions. Whereas in another region, that might be a lot more prevalent. So these are the softer dimensions that you need to understand about yourself. So what are those that are important to you at the top level, which is the artifacts and products? What are those that are most important to you at the norms and value level? And what are those that are just basic assumptions to you? And then try and map that to people that you see at work. So in the future, when you do enter an organization, it might be worthwhile for you to do this mapping to try and understand. how people look at these things. And for resonance, how does an organization look from these elements? Do you find those values and norms as you go through their social media pages, as you hear about them, as you see them in YouTube videos, as you see them in organizational news? What does it sound like? Does it sound worthy? That's a great starting point. A lot of times we just leave this layer completely. We just start looking for jobs. We just start looking for a role. We just start looking for, where can I fit in? This is a great place to self reflect. This is a great place to take a pause and think about all of these elements before. And this is much in the initiation of your transition journey. Like I said, some organizations that are already there, some that are still catching up. So value those that are already there, because they already understand what value and what you bring to the table, right? Um, okay. I'm gonna just quickly move to the next page. I'm also still assuming. So this is a place that I would have loved to have some point of view from you. What do you think? And because we have a smaller audience here, what do you think is the big difference? How do you find yourself very different from the rest? I'm looking for a response from somebody in the group now on this. How do you see yourself very different as you think about this transition? Or what's that one thing you think is going to be your differentiator? I don't see too many names here, but they're all short form, so I can't really pull anybody out. Anybody? I'd expect more from everybody. Anybody on chat? I'm seriously waiting. And I'm really hopefully waiting. Like, I've not known veterans to be so quiet. I get something on chat. Let me catch. Skill set. You see that your skill sets are different. Okay, that's interesting. Anybody else? Resilience.
Yeah.
So I'm assuming, Praveen, you're saying that you come with more resilience than the rest of us. Mentally very tough. True. That's true. What else could it be? Anybody else? And thank you for actually speaking up. I'm glad. Yes, you've been through rough service conditions, so your conditioning to challenges is a lot different to somebody at corporate. And this is something I want to share with you as a true example. In one of my workspaces, while working with somebody who's a veteran, I remember this time when a team member went out calling, to this veteran saying, we're stuck here. This is not happening. That's not happening. This is not happening. That's not happening. And the person just took a deep breath and said, so, and she had a huge question mark on her face, like, but we're not going to be able to do it. I'm saying, well, we'll have to find a way. So what's that way? So I do think that in the worst conditions, in when, maybe in corporate language, when we say, when the client comes howling in our face, or when things seem to be tearing apart, when things to be falling apart, when everything's disrupted, say for example, if it's a supply chain, it's completely disrupted. Think that's a space where you will find someone like yourself, really calm and composed, who'll go one step at a time, stitch the whole story together again. Now, that's a skill set that is valued in the workspace. It is, genuinely it is. And that's a skill set that only, I can say very safely, I've done a bit of seen fair bit in hiring as well, comes from the experience that you bring. So, at any point in time, as you begin to think about all of this, yes, this stuff that I'm seeing on my chat screen here, please make sure that you do highlight all of this in your resumes. You do highlight all of this in the covering letter that you're talking about when you're applying for a particular role. We will talk about all of that also in detailed sessions that will follow. Uh, yeah, I think that's also true. It's also the commitment, the high on ethics, the high on morality. This is right and this is wrong, and the sense to decipher, um, just looking at stuff beyond profit that comes, yes, from this cohort that's in this session here. I completely agree with you. And thanks for sharing. So remember that when we look at this, when you think of this transition, I would say give less emphasis to the skill sets that are different. Because believe me when I say this, organizations bring and value culture fitment. I can talk about various organizations that I've consulted in hiring. And just for you to get a sense of this, it's called the behavior event interviewing method, where organizations constantly say we want to transition to this system of hiring, but we want to focus on certain behaviors. And those behaviors are the behaviors that resonate with an organization's culture. It's not about finding somebody who's great at Java, or finding someone who's great at Excel, or finding someone who can sift through large volumes of data, but it's typically about finding someone who can, you know, see the silver lining in the dark cloud, who can sift through the mess and still find that one needle in that mess. For a person who can, see the team through that blind turn and we don't know where we are heading, that person who can take risks and calculated risks and knows what is the outcome of that calculated risk, those are typically the values that organizations really want to hire. So remember to focus on that. Remember to talk about yourself from that standpoint. And at any point in time, don't focus too much on this is only giving the skill set and I don't have the skill set. Yeah. Don't think like that. But as we go through these various sessions, we will talk about all of those elements. Okay. If nobody has anything more to share, I'm gonna hop to the next. So this is some of the differences in growth and innovation, duty and discipline, profit, mission, hierarchy is more fluid in the corporates, uh, you know, but a lot more restricted in, uh, of course, there's a lot more group cohesion that comes. It's not that it's not there in the corporate world, it is, but a lot of stuff stands at individual incentives as well. Um, then adaptability. I think adaptability is what you need. Resilience is what you have. You turn your resilience into your adaptability here. They have almost, in most cases, used very synonymously, but adapting to this terrain is what you really have to think about. You already have the resilience to go the distance. Yeah. But you have to think about every single step. Think of this as a combat activity. When you're in a combat activity, at least that's what I've heard from people that are in the spaces. They think about every single movement. What does that mean? How does it happen? What works? What doesn't work? All of that. This is the time for you to plan that very, very meticulously, extremely meticulously. Yeah, and that is what will give you the trust to be a lot more adaptable. Yeah. I'm gonna also just, close with this really small, simple tool. So you'll find a lot of people, when you work in the corporate work field. And let's take for a minute and assume you already entered a setup. Allow me a minute. I just have to take this. Just give me a minute. Miss. Yeah. Okay. So coming. So okay. So coming back to what I'm talking about is when you assume that you are already in the setup. Okay, and you will be able to see people have different traits. Some of them seem like pioneers, and there are some keywords they're bold, experimental, future focused. There is some approach that they take. There are some people that usually are connectors. They're more collaborative, more people oriented, means more supportive. There are people who challenge a lot more, who think through, who are more competitive, and there's a challengers. And then there are those that anchor. They're structured, disciplined, and process driven. More often than not, you'd find yourself resonate a lot more at the anchor space. Maybe you'd see some other traits, but at a lower. It's also important for you to see how you fit in people that are in your immediate environment. How do they fit in? Where are they sitting? Where are they fitting in? And once you do that, it's very, very important it, for you to put them in these buckets to understand how you should think about them and how you should collaborate with them. Like, for example, somebody who is a challenger, you may want to always bring a lot more statistical data, more factual information than a point of view to this person because it will get challenged. When you think about somebody who's a pioneer, you may want to take that chance at helping that person understand what are the risks involved with what's happening. Even if they're trying to be innovative, I think the value that you might bring is to anchor in that pioneer approach to say these are the different risks that we need to tackle. So, understanding people and also being able to bucket them is another very important trait, not just for you, but this is something that we also teach internally. For the sake of team cohesion, it's very, very important that you bring in all of this together. Okay. And I'm going to take a stop here. This was broadly about everything that I had. I'm happy to take questions if you have any at this point in time. So, Rashmi, I'm going to take a pause here. I'm going to hand it over back to you and open to the audience for any questions that you have for me to answer at this point.
Yeah. I think we'll give a minute for folks to see. But thank you so much, Rupali, for the sessions. I think super helpful. And if we can send across some of these key insights to people who are not maybe able to join in today, that will be super helpful. So
Yeah.
let's do that.
Thank you.
But thank you so much for making time for the session today. Really
Super.
appreciate it.
I'm happy to be here. Thank you.
All right, I think we're going to wrap it up on that. It's already time. We're on time. We're great. All right. Thank you, everyone, for making time for the session today. We look forward to hosting you again for the next one. Stay tuned. We will be sharing the details, in coming days. Thanks a ton. Have a good one. Bye bye.